Okay, now I welcome you everyone to the discussion of Chapter 3, Bioethics and its Application in Various Healthcare Situations. And in this part, we're just going to limit our discussion to issues on sexuality, marriage, and human reproduction. So, as we have learned, bioethics is simply the study of moral questions, questions of right and wrong, that come up in healthcare and biology and medicine. This chapter is about how you, as a future nurse, will handle situations in the clinic or hospital that have an ethical dimension, specifically around sexuality, marriage, or having children, and the beginning of life. So we will also look at what the Catholic Church teaches, what Philippine law says, what the nursing profession expects of you, and what your patient believes, and how to balance all of these when you are at the bedside. I have also added two things to your ano to our discussion. I'm not sure if I gave this as a part of your learning handout. The actual Philippine laws that apply, and like for example, the RH law, the anti-rape law, and the law against violence on women. And second, the four ethical principles from Beauchamp and Childress: the autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice, which you will use as your daily decision-making tools. Okay. Um, Now let's take a look first on our learning objectives in this discussion. Yan. So these six learning objectives are the goals, for the whole discussion. For first, by the end, you should be able to describe in your own words what descriptive and normative ethics mean. If you remember it before, descriptive ethics is what people actually do, while normative ethics is what people should do. So in marriage, sexuality, and human reproduction, there are things that people that actually do. But there are also things that people has to do or must do. Okay, so you should be able to describe this. And second, learning objective is you should recognize when a patient situation has an ethical dilemma, a problem where two values are in conflict, and be able to frame that conflict clearly. Okay, for the learning objective 3, um, you should be able to break down an issue using, of course, the elements, the components of the classic moral evaluation framework, yung may action or object, intention, consequence, and the outcome. And of course, apply the four ethical principles. Okay? Then for the learning objective number 4, you should be able to apply the Philippine Code of Ethics for registered nurses, which is the official rule book for Filipino nurses. According to the PRC Board of Nursing Resolution 220 in 2004. Then learning objective number 5, you should be able to connect the family code, our marriage law, and the RH law, the anti-rape law, the anti-violence against women and children law, um, and also parts of the Constitution, which protects the unborn, to nursing practice. You should be able to connect these laws, to nursing practice. And learning objective 6 is you should be able to form your own ethical position through both your personal and professional lens, and pick the right nursing intervention. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so now we begin with human sexuality first and its moral evaluation. So the word sexuality, here means more than just sex acts. It means the whole experience of being male or female, your body, your feelings, your relationships, and how you relate to others. Moral evaluation means asking the question, is this right or wrong, and why? In this section, we will look at we will look at the five lenses or viewpoints through which people evaluate sexuality. First is the anthropological lens, meaning what does it mean to be a sexed human being, biologically and personally. Then second, let's examine the Catholic moral tradition, importantly, because about 80% of Filipinos are Catholic. Third, the personalist vision of Leo Esquerra, which says that sex is about love and the gift of self. Fourth is the contribution of Sigmund Freud, the Austrian doctor who founded psychoanalysis, who saw sex as a basic human drive. And fifth, the sexual revolution of the 20th century, which separated sex from marriage and from having children. So for you as a nurse, this section matters because your patients will frame their sexual and reproductive concerns using one or more of these lenses. And you need to understand where they are coming from. All right? Now let's start with the definition of human sexuality. Uh, the definition that we will use throughout this discussion is that human sexuality is the total experience of being a sexual person. Your body, your feelings, your behaviors, and how you relate to others sexually and intimately. So the phrase Homo sapiens no simply means human beings. It is the scientific name of our species. So when the textbook says totality of experiences, systems, attributes, and behavior that characterize the sexual sensation, reproduction, and intimacy of Homo sapiens, it just means everything about being a sexual human. Why does this matter for nursing? Because patients bring sexual concerns to you all the time. When they ask about contraception or birth control, when they have a sexually transmitted infection, when they are struggling with infertility or difficulty getting pregnant, or when they disclose abuse, your job is to assess no, you assess their medical needs. But you also have to respect their personal beliefs, whether they are Catholic, Muslim, Iglesia ni Cristo, Evangelical, or no religion at all. Okay? So you write down their beliefs in the chart so the rest of the healthcare team knows. You do not impose your own. Okay? For example, a 24-year-old woman comes to you asking for emergency contraception or the so-called morning after pill after unprotected sex. You assess if it is medically safe for her. You ask if she has any religious concerns about it. And you respect whatever she decides, even if her decision is different from what you would choose for yourself. Okay, is that clear? Now, this slide breaks down the biological side of being male or female. The word anthropological here means about the human person. It looks at what the body tells us about sex. So look at the table row by row. First row is chromosomal. Chromosomes are the tiny structures in your cells that carry your genes, your DNA. The last pair of chromosome is either female or male. No? XX for female and XY for male. That is your genetic sex. Okay, for the nurse, this matters when a patient has an intersex condition, meaning they were born with chromosomes, hormones, or anatomy that do not fit typical of a male or a female pattern. So you document the karyotype, no, a lab test that shows the chromosomes, and you respect the gender that patient identifies with. The second row is neuroendocrine. Neuroendocrine means the connection between the brain and the hormones. It means that the gonads are the organs that make sex cells. Diba? Ovaries in women located inside the body, and testicles in men located outside the body. Okay. Now the third row is about ductal, no, as a differentiating factor. Ducts are tube. In male fetuses, the Wolffian ducts develop into the male reproductive tract. In female fetuses, the Mullerian ducts develop into the female tract. Conditions like the androgen insensitivity syndrome, where the body does not respond to male hormones, and the MRKH or the Mayer-Rokitansky Kuster-Hauser syndrome, where a girl is born without a uterus, come from this stage. All right. Now, fourth row is the phenotypic as a differentiating factor. Phenotype means the visible traits. These are the primary sex characteristics, the genitals that you can see at birth, and the secondary sex characteristics, things that appear at puberty, like breast development, facial hair, voice changes, etc. Now, the key idea at the bottom is that sexuality is structural. That means it is built into the whole person, not just a part of the body. The practical nursing example is when you do a pelvic exam, you always offer a chaperone. Another staff member in the room can come. No? That is not just a hospital rule. It shows respect for the dignity of the patient's body and sexuality. Okay? Let me just, yeah. Now, this slide is about what the Catholic Church teaches, no, on sexuality. Why does it matter to you as a Filipino nurse? Because according to the 2015 census by the Philippine Statistics Authority, about 80% of Filipinos, no, that is like 80 million, more than 80 million people, identify as Roman Catholic. So out of 10 patients you care for will likely be Catholic. And they will make decisions about contraception, infertility, treatment, and end of life care based on what their church teaches. You do not need to agree with the teachings, but you need to understand them. Now, on the left column, you see the sources of Catholic teaching. The main ones are the Bible, okay? Also called the Sacred Scripture. Also, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is the official summary of Catholic beliefs, and a series of letters and documents written by the popes and church councils. Now, the most important for our topic are the Humanae Vitae, no, written by Pope Paul VI in 1968. It forbids artificial contraception. Okay, so you have to remember that when you are taking care of a Catholic. For the Evangelium Vitae by Pope John Paul II in 1995, it defends the sanctity of life. And Amoris Laetitia by Pope Francis in 2016, it is a document about family life. Okay? Now, on the right column are the three core principles. Or, yeah. So, first is the teleology. Teleology is a Greek word meaning purpose or end goal. So the principle is sexuality must be used in keeping with its God-given purpose. Okay. Second, the unitive dimension. That unitive means bringing two people together. Okay. So these are the principles, no, of sexual ethics in Catholic morality. Yun nga, first is the teleology, wherein it asserts that sexuality must be used in keeping with its God-given purpose. Okay? So what is the purpose for sexuality in humans according to the Catholic morality? It's of course for reproduction or for co-creation. Then the second is the unitive dimension. The unitive means bringing two people together. So the sexual act between husband and wife is supposed to express and strengthen their love. It is a total giving of self. And then the third is the procreative dimension. Procreative means open to creating new life. So the sexual act must always be open to the possibility of having a child. Okay? The Catholic Church teaches that you cannot separate these two dimensions, the unitive and the procreative dimensions. Love giving and life giving must always go together according to the church morality. The big quote no, at the bottom is from Leo Scretia, the author of the Personalist Bioethics book. Anytime you break the connection between sexuality, marriage, and family, according to him, you weaken the family itself. That is according to Leo Scretia in his Personalist Bioethics book. Now, as a nurse, your job is not to argue with patients about theology. Your job is to listen, respect, and provide accurate medical information and to make sure the patient's beliefs are reflected in their care plan. Okay, is that clear? But at least you understand, no? How you have to understand the Catholic morality. Since again, 8 out of 10, no, of your patients will most likely be Catholics. Now, this slide compares two very different ways of looking at sexuality: the personalist vision, which is positive and love-centered, and the Freudian tradition, which sees sex as a basic biological drive. Personalist comes from the word person. It focuses on the dignity of the human person. The personalist vision was developed by a Catholic ethicist named Leo Scretia in 1992. His key ideas are listed actually on the left side of the table. No, his he says sexual attraction is connected with love. It is not just a physical urge, according to Scretia. Real love is something you choose freely. You give yourself to the other person. And there is a difference between a sex relation or any interaction between a man and a woman, like a friendship or work relationship, and a genital sexual relationship, which involves physical intimacy. So Scretia says genital sex is meaningful only when it happens within marriage, between a man and a woman, exclusively only the two of them. And it is permanent, cannot be undone, and open to children. So that is what the personalist vision, no, of sexuality is. Importantly, he also says genital sex is not necessary for a person to be fulfilled. According to him, a person can live a full life without it. Okay? Now, on the right part of the table is Sigmund Freud's view. Freud was an Austrian doctor who founded psychoanalysis in the early 1900s. He believes sexuality is a fundamental part of the whole person, and plays a huge role in how we develop and form relationships. But he also saw the family as a kind of web of repressed instincts and tensions. Sabi niya, if sublimation is a Freudian term, it means channeling sexual energy into other activities like work or art. Some later thinkers took Freud further into pansexualism, meaning they believe sex explains everything about human behavior. Okay? William Masters and Virginia Johnson, no, were American researchers in the 1960s who studied the physical reactions of the body during sex in a laboratory. And some critics say they reduced sex to a mechanical process, right? The takeaway for you as a nurse is that you will meet patients who see sex as a love-giving act, okay? Like in the personalist view. And patients who see sex as just a physical urge, no, or a Freudian view. Both deserve your care and respect. You do not impose your view on either. Is that clear? Ayan. Now, uh, this slide, no, flashing the screen right now, is about the three ideas on freedom and responsibility. Uh, Phenomenology, freedom, and responsibility are these three ideas. Phenomenology, is a big word from philosophy. It simply means the study of lived experience. So, a phenomenology of sexual life means looking at how people actually experience their sexuality before we make any judgment about it. The key idea is this: in animals, the sexual urge is just an instinct, a strong automatic drive. But in humans, that same urge can be transformed into love. Karol Wojtyla, who was also called Pope John Paul II, name before, which is the name before he became Pope, yung Karol Wojtyla, wrote a famous book called Love and Responsibility in 1960. So Pope John Paul II wrote Love and Responsibility. The big quote in the middle of the slide comes from that book. Okay, read it carefully. He says that if you only, uh, he says that if you only follow your sexual urge, so he said here, through sexual impulse alone, one says, I desire you because you are good to me. But when this impulse is transformed into the benevolence of love, one is bound to say, I desire your good. Okay, so that is what Pope John Paul II wrote in his book on love and responsibility. So it's like saying, if you only follow your sexual urge, you say, I desire you because you are good for me. That is using the other person for your own benefit. But when that urge becomes real love, you say, I desire your good. Meaning you care about what is best for the other person, not just yourself. That is a huge shift, from taking to giving. Okay. Then below this that code, you see the three pillars. A pillar is a supporting idea, right? So the first pillar is freedom. Freedom, real love must be freely chosen. No? That is what freedom means, in the phenomenology of sexual life. Real love must be freely chosen. If it is forced, it is not love. The second pillar is responsibility. Every sexual decision has consequences, and you have to take responsibility for those consequences. Okay? The third pillar is spousal love, the kind of love that happens in marriage, where both people give themselves completely to each other as a gift. Okay? So, the nursing application is that when a patient tells you they made sexual decisions they regret, maybe they had unprotected sex, maybe they were unfaithful, maybe they had an abortion. Your job is not to preach or lecture them. Your job is to acknowledge that they made a free choice and to help them take responsibility going forward. That might mean getting tested for sexually transmitted infections, making a contraception plan, or screening for intimate partner violence if there was coercion involved. Okay, is that clear? Now, this slide is about the sexual revolution, the huge change in sexual attitudes and behavior that happened in the 20th century, especially in Western countries. Look at the three big numbers at the top. In 1900s, only about 6% of unmarried teenage girls had sex before marriage. By 2002, that number had risen to about 75%. So imagine that is a massive shift in just 100 years. Uh, the textbook says that this was caused mainly by the contraception revolution, meaning the invention of reliable birth control methods like the pill, which came out in 1960, and better sex education. So Once people could have sex without fear of pregnancy, attitudes change quickly. Okay, so below those stats, uh, you see three ideologies. Ano nga ba ang ideology? What is an ideology? Ideology is a system of ideas or beliefs. So the first is libertinism. Means someone who follows their desires without moral limits. And this view says sex is a basic instinct that should not be controlled by moral rules. Okay? It splits sex into two categories: sex for pleasure and sex for making babies. The second ideology is post-Freudian pansexualism. Meaning all. So pansexualism means sex is everything. So this view says every sexual impulse must be satisfied. And if you repress them or hold them back, hold back these impulses, you will get neurosis, no, or mental health problems like anxiety. So that is according to pansexualism. Now the third is the feminism of Simone de Beauvoir. She was a French writer who in 1949 wrote The Second Sex, a famous feminist book. Her view is that women should be able to plan their own lives freely without being trapped by motherhood. Now, as a nurse, you will meet patients shaped by all three of these ideologies. Sometimes the same patient at different times of life. A 19-year-old who wants Depo-Provera or the birth control shot might be thinking in libertine terms. She just wants sex without pregnancy. Your counseling does not change based on her ideology. You still give her the same medical information, but you might adjust how you talk to her. Okay, is that clear? Again, non-judgmental attitude is very important.